What's up, everyone? So, Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 2 dropped yesterday, and like many of you, I immediately binged the entire thing. My original plan was to film a quick reaction video and post it right after watching the show, but after finishing it, I realized I needed some time to actually process what I just watched. Because there is a lot to unpack here, right? So I took 18 hours to think about it, and now I'm ready to break it down. Like, from the moments that I liked and they gave me chills, to the storylines that I think are wrapped up and paid off, and a couple questions that the people are asking, which is, what does it mean for the finale? And of course, if Byler is still possible. Let's get into it. So before I dive in, I really want to say that I'm going to start with the things that I think went well, because honestly, I feel like the internet is flooded with negativity every time a highly anticipated show comes out. Everyone's racing to tear things apart, everyone's there to say how things were not done well, and I think it's important to acknowledge what the creators of the show did right before we get into the criticism. Starting with the scene that literally had me so locked in. Will controlling Vecna in episode 5. I had literal chills watching it, and you can actually see it in my reaction. I usually knit when I watch shows, and when this one came up, I just couldn't tear my eyes from the screen. I had to drop my knitting because I was so locked in and so affected by the scene. What I also like about this is that there were so many theories about why Will is screaming "run" in the trailer, and I didn't see a single person predicting he was saving Mike in that moment by being in Vecna's mind. So I think that here the writers actually managed to surprise us, which is rare when you have a fandom that analyzes every shot in the trailer. Of Max, her escape storyline obviously was a long time coming, and I was worried about how they'd handle it, because for example in Volume 1, when I realized Max and Holly's storyline would be separate from the main group, I was nervous because, as we all remember, in Season 4 there was a Russian storyline, and it very much felt like a show within a show. Yeah, Joyce, Hopper, and Murray ended up helping the main kids remotely by burning the Demogorgons, but most of it still felt very disconnected for the whole season for me. I expected the same thing with Max this season, but that didn't happen. I feel like her escape was very well integrated into the larger narrative, even though it was physically separate. I'm really happy about it. And then there is this whole big reveal that the Upside Down is a wormhole. I did not see that one coming. I thought Vecna would be building a wormhole, not that the Upside Down itself is one. Can I just ask real quick, did they ever explain why Demogorgons can open small gates? Like, why weren't they doing that in Season 2 or Season 4? I think they only do it in Season 1 and 5. Am I missing something obvious? Am I being dumb? I'm genuinely confused about this. Now let's talk about the relationship drama, right? The Jonathan and Nancy breakup. I'm very happy about how this was executed. Like, many people I thought would sit through an actual proposal, but their relationship has been on the rocks for multiple seasons, and I assume that was a setup for breakup, but I was worried that pushed Nancy into Steve's arms immediately, or in general. So, as I mentioned in my theories video a few weeks ago, I think that would be a terrible idea. Steve wants a family with 6 kids. Nancy hasn't expressed a desire for that, and she says she doesn't know what she wants. And also, I feel like that would undermine her character arc from Season 1, from like a suburban girl rebelling in every way a suburban girl does, to now where she's a badass leader fighting interdimensional monsters and like shooting at the military. That would feel a bit undermined if they just paired her off with someone, or Steve especially. So, to be clear, I'm not saying you can't be a monster fighter and a mom at the same time. I'm really pleased with how they broke up the triangle without forcing her into either option. Also, Steve didn't die, and him and Dusty making up made me cry. I'm a sucker for friends reconciling, like father/brother figures being there for their mentees. Yeah, it always does it for me. I cry every time. And then there's the coming out scene for Will. And my opinion on that is a bit more nuanced than the other ones. And I feel like I like where the scene was placed in the narrative and what purpose it serves. So I've seen so many people calling it awkward and realistic, generally hating on it. But honestly, I didn't think it was that bad. Could it have been better? I guess so. And that actually takes us to the things that I wasn't so happy about in Volume 2. I see the issue people are having with the scene, and I see that it's weird to have a full crowd in the room with Will, watching him have his coming out moment, and not it just being his mom, Jonathan, Mike, Lucas, Dustin, Max, and Eleven, which is still a bunch of people, and Robin, actually. When I think about the logistics of the scene, they had 5 minutes before they had to go to fight, and it must have been easier to just get everyone into the room instead of handpicking the most important friends. Also, there was an AIDS crisis in the 80s, so coming out to a bunch of people you don't really know comes off unrealistic to me. Yeah. However, I think that the scene serves its purpose, which was Will freeing himself, paralleling his conversation with Robin about coming out, and just becoming less vulnerable to Vecna, and also being able to fight and be more useful to the whole purpose of the show, which is defeat Vecna. I just remembered that there was this trip to the Upside Down through the rift, and where they like lift up the metal plate and go into the Upside Down. For a few characters, it's their first time, and I actually forgot it happened, and I only remembered when I was reviewing my notes later. For such a significant moment, it needed more weight in my opinion, or it just didn't have to be there. So yeah, did not love that. Max coming back and it not being that big of a deal for me was also not cool in my opinion. I didn't feel like it was a big deal. Elle was trying to save Max in season 4 so hard. She resurrected Max, and we didn't get much of a reunion between the two. So maybe we'll get something later and it will pay off. A couple fun things before we get to the big questions. It was a plot twist that Will was building the vines, and I think a few weeks ago on Hot Ones, Noah Schnapp accidentally spoiled that, and no one noticed until after the episode aired. So when I saw it in the show, I immediately thought back to the interview and I chuckled. This also makes me think that we can trust Noah. We can trust what he says in the interview, which is helpful. Speaking of Noah, as far as I know, he confirmed in interviews that he had the most scenes with Finn this season, and I don't think we saw that many Will and Mike scenes in season 5. So maybe he meant volume 1 scenes, or maybe they're all in the finale. We finally got the confirmation for the whole internet discourse if when Mike and Elle were talking about leaving and starting new somewhere, if they were talking about them, the two of them, or the whole party. But yeah, we got a confirmation that when they talk about it, it was we, the party, and not we, Mike and Elle, specifically. I can't not notice that volume 2 had barely any Will and Mike interactions, but it also didn't feel like there was a single romantic Eleven moment either. Which brings me to the question all over my For You page. Not gonna lie, I think that if the writers wanted to close the storyline here, they could. Will came out, he called Mike his Tammy, Mike is slightly less clueless, so they could wrap it up vaguely and move into the finale focused on the battle. They could get away with it. I don't think that's gonna be the case though. So let me walk you through what I'm thinking and what I noticed and where the math is not mathing for me. So when in doubt, I try to find numbers that I can trust, and so far I've counted 6 or 6.5 character-to-character conflicts in this season, depending on how you count. 2 of those conflicts were introduced in season 5, so it's Steve and Dustin, their disconnect and emotional troubles that has been resolved. Very emotionally, as I said, I cried. 11, Kali and Hopper trust issues that can be considered 1, because it's all about trust issues, or it can be 2, split between 11 Kali and Hopper and 11. Hasn't been resolved. And then we have 4 other conflicts bleeding in from season 4. Will's inner conflict and identity, almost resolved through coming out and taking on a major role in the action. It will likely continue during the finale. Max and Lucas, right? Max woke up, Lucas's emotional connection's clear. There is no will they, won't they, so I consider this resolved. Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve, resolved. Triangle broken, no Jancy, no Stancy. And then Byler, right? It could be argued, like, if it even counts as conflict to the writers, but for the purpose of this video and considering all plot points from my Byler video, I say it does count. So out of 6 or 6.5 interpersonal conflicts, 4 have been definitely resolved before the finale is even here. I think it matters because in season 1 to 3, they would usually bring the main characters together in the finale or in the last seconds of the episode before the finale, and then they would resolve character conflicts in the finale. Season 4 kind of breaks this rule by not resolving as much, but it wrapped up a lot of the things in the finale, even though many conflicts bled through into season 5. What I'm saying is, in terms of resolution timing, we're way ahead of a regular season schedule, and there's space to resolve multiple major character conflicts that have not been resolved. Also, the Duffer brothers confirmed that there's going to be a lot of intimate moments between the characters in the finale. Will came out. He called Mike his Tammy Thompson. I can't be the only one who felt like calling Mike Will's Tammy was an insult to Will's and Mike's relationship, but that's a whole other topic. Does it feel enough that Mike now knows that Will had a crush on him? Is that a good wrap-up of the story? No. The goddamn painting. They addressed the university thing between Jonathan and Nancy this season, which was a way smaller thing compared to the painting, right? So I think we are getting something about the painting. The fact that it's one of the only major character threads unresolved, by my standards, to be fair, makes me think it's not done. So my take, I think something's coming. Canon Byler or not, I think we're getting something in the finale that addresses this directly. Like, worst case scenario is that there will be a conversation about Will's crush that Mike and Will are going to have. Also, as I said, it seems like we can trust what Noah says in interviews, and he promised a beautiful wrap-up of the Byler story and fans being satisfied. And I don't think they were satisfied yet. We'll see. It could be just wishful thinking, but that's just what I noticed from the storytelling structure perspective as a casual TV show enjoyer. Those are my thoughts after sitting with volume 2 for a bit. Am I reading too much into it? Does the timing feel intentional to other people too? I feel like this finale is going to be either very satisfying or really messy, and I don't know where it's leaning yet. Hopefully it's not a Game of Thrones situation or a How I Met Your Mother situation.